Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to LSBF TV. My name is David Laws and we are going to be looking at some budgeting this afternoon. You can see I have my lovely AAT t-shirt on. So, we're going to be looking at task 3 of the Management Accounting Business Unit Assessment. And the idea then is that we are going to work our way through slowly, working our way through to make sure, first of all, that everybody's happy with what we're doing, but also there'll be a little bit of exam technique as we go through. Not too much, but a little bit of exam technique. So if you have the practice assessment in front of you, if you don't worry because it's going to be on the screen. Let's have a look at the tasks that we're going to have. So first of all, what we are being asked to do is to complete a number of different working schedules. So we're going to look at materials, that's for my workings. We're going to look at labour and we're going to look at overheads. And then, once we have done that, then we're going to complete an operating budget. We will see how far we get with the operating budget. So, first thing then to make sure that we're happy with is what information are we actually given. So we are given a production budget. We are told about the finished goods that we have as our opening inventory. We're told about the closing inventory and we're told about how many items we produce. That just gives me an excuse to put lots of coloured highlighters on there. So, we're told about the production that we've got, the inventory of finished goods and the closing inventory of finished goods. What we are not told about, at least not to begin with, is we're not told about the materials. All we're given is the opening inventory. Now that means the first job we will need to do is to work out how many items we actually bought, how much material we actually bought, how much we used, and then you can see we know what's in the closing inventory. Now, one way that you can do this, there are a number of ways that you can do it, but certainly what I think is the easiest way to do things is to think about all of the different items that you have. Where do they come from? All the materials that you have in your factory, where do they come from? Where do they go to? Well, all the bits of material that you use, well, either you had them at the beginning of the month, or you buy them. Got to be one or the other. Now, what happens to them? So you have all these materials, some that you started with in inventory and some that you bought. What happens to them? Well, either you use them up, and if you don't use them up, they must be in your closing inventory. So in other words, however much you begin with and you buy, in other words, those two, opening plus purchases, has got to be what you ended up using or what you were left with, the production and the closing. Those two numbers have got to be the same. There can't be anything else that could possibly happen. So that's a useful trick, because if you are given 3 out of those 4 numbers, you can always work out the other one. So let's see what we're given in this one. Well, we're given the opening inventory and we're given the closing inventory. What we're not told is the purchases or the production. But we can work out what the production is because we are told how many items we made. We were told that we made 348,000 units. And we also know that each unit of production uses up 0.7 kilos of material. So that means that our production must have used up 243,600 kilograms. So 243 600 That's how many we used. Now, I'm just going to put those into my little working. 243,600 is what we used. We know that 7,400 was what we had left. Those two together come to 251,000. I know because I checked earlier. Now, where did they come from? Well, I know that 8,800 were there at the beginning. Somehow, I needed to have got 251,000. Well, some were there at the beginning. Where did the rest come from? Well, I must have bought them. So the purchases must be the balancing figure. The purchases must be whatever number makes that correct. 8,800 plus something equals 251. Well, that means that your purchases must be 242,200. BALFIG. So balancing figure, simply to make it add up. And now, what I started with in the warehouse, in inventory, plus what I purchased, is what I've used, plus what I got left. And those two, as I've already said, must add up to the same thing. So, what I would advise is always do the units first. Don't try and get things complicated and try and do the units and the pounds as you go along. Do one thing at a time. It's just easier. I'm a big believer in doing one thing at a time. All right then, so we've done the kilos. Now what we need to do is we now need to do the pounds. Well, the purchases bit, that should be quite straightforward because it says purchases are £1.45 per kilo. That should be nice and easy then. So Waleed says A plus B. I think that should say, Waleed, I think that should say A plus B equals C plus D. But yes, you are quite correct. Yeah? I like things that add up. So we have got 240,000. Start again. We have got 242,200 kilos that we bought. I will get rid of that because that might confuse things. £1.45 each. I'll put it up there. There you go, it's out of the way. And that means that we spent 351,190 on our purchases. Now, as Waleed has quite correctly pointed out, exactly the same idea as we had for the kilos works out for the pounds. So the opening inventory pounds plus the purchases pounds also equals the production pounds plus the closing inventory pounds. Again, it's got to. So, otherwise the accounts won't balance. So let's add up what we've got so far. We've got 363,510. Now, the question says, it says, closing inventory will be valued at the budgeted purchase price per kilo. So in other words, whatever they are expecting to pay per kilogram during the month, that's what the closing inventory will be valued at. Well, we've just said they're expecting to pay £1.45. So our closing inventory will be valued at 10,730. Now, one obvious thing to do then would be to say, well, the amount we've used in production, surely that will also be £1.45. So we just stick 243,600 times £1.45, and that would be the amount used in production. That's not true. That's not correct, or it might not be correct. That's a better way of saying it. And the reason is, in our opening inventory, there might be some materials that we bought at a cheaper price, that perhaps the prices were lower last month. So we might have bought them at a cheaper price, but we've used them this month. So the safest way to make sure that you are going to get the right figure is simply to do the same thing, to say, right, just like we said for the units, opening inventory plus what you buy equals production plus what's left. It's the same for the pounds. So I need a balancing figure, 10,730, which is what the value of my closing inventory is, plus whatever I used in production has got to equal 363, oops, you can't see that, there we go, 363,510. And again, simply doing a little bit of arithmetic, you end up with 352,780, and again, that's your balancing figure. And that might be £1.45 per unit, but it might not be. And if it isn't, it's because there is some material in your opening inventory that was valued at a different price. So that's the safest way to do it, to make sure you get it correct. Do the numbers that you know, the numbers that you don't, put them in to make it add up, balancing figures. So that's done the materials. To be honest, the materials that's the hardest bit in this particular question, to be perfectly honest with you. Let's have a look at the labour. So labour, it says basic time at £15 per hour, and then it says overtime. All right. So let's see what we're told about labour. So labour, first of all, we're told we have 164 staff working 160 basic hours each. So in other words, that's how many hours each they are working. So labour, we have got 164 times 160. So that is 26,240 hours. Now the trouble is, I need the overtime figure, and I wasn't told that. I wasn't told what the overtime figure was. I'm told how much they get paid 40% extra, but I'm not told how many hours it is. So I will need that, and I'm also not told the total. It doesn't tell me the total hours either. But it does tell me how long each item takes to produce. And I also know how many items they produced. So I can actually work it out. I can work out how many hours they must have worked. They made 348,000, and each unit takes 5 minutes. Now, I hope that none of you are going to make the extremely foolish mistake that I did when I first did it. It was early in the morning and I hadn't had enough coffee. And I did, okay, so 348,000 units times that. And some of you will realise that what I'm going to end up with is 348,000 times 5 hours. Because I've done it in hours. And of course it's not in hours. Now there's different ways that you can do this. The way that I would do this, and again, I'm just a big believer in doing things in as easy a way as possible. It says 5 minutes, so that is 5/60ths of an hour. I would do it like that. So in my calculator, I would do 348,000 times 5 divided by 60. Again, it's the safest way of doing things. If you start trying to round things and do them as decimals, it doesn't always work very well. So I would just do it like this because it's the most straightforward way of doing it. So that gives us the fact that to do all the production would have required 29,000 hours. 26 of them were their basic hours. So what's the overtime? It must be the difference between the two. Again, it must be a balancing figure. It's got whatever number's going to make it add up, which you can work out is 2,760. You notice what I'm doing. Again, do the units first. For the materials, it was kilograms. For the labour, it's hours. Do one thing at a time. So I'm doing the units first, and once I've got the units, then I'll look at the money side. I'll look at the pound side. So we have got Basic time, £15 per hour, 26,240 at £15 each is 393,600. Now this time, I'm going to have to work out the total. That will come last because I've got to work out what the overtime is. Now, just be careful about this. We have got the overtime, I've got 2,760, and it tells you that overtime is paid a premium 40% above the basic hourly rate. So in other words, 15 is what they should earn, 40% above that is 140%. Now you will need to read the question carefully, because what we were given here is we were given the basic time and then the overtime. What we might have been given in that top row, it could have said how many hours altogether. That would be the 29,000. You could have been given the total time. Now if that's what you have, then all you'd be looking for overtime is the extra. So you have 29,000 hours at £15 an hour, and then you'd have to calculate what the extra bit was, in which case it would only be the premium, it would only be the extra bit, the extra 40%. But what we were told here is, here's all the hours that you pay at the basic rate. The overtime, you've got to work out how much you're going to pay for them. £15 plus a bit extra. So 2,760 times 15 times 140% comes to 5,790, giving me a total of 451,560. Final bit we've got, variable overheads. Variable overheads, nice and straightforward. Variable overheads, £2.60 an hour. How many hours did we use? 29,000. Variable overheads don't care if it's ordinary basic time or if it's overtime. It's based on all of the hours that you work. So it's not split between overtime and basic, it's simply how many hours were there altogether. So it's simply 29,000. Fixed overheads obviously is irrelevant for the hours. Fixed overheads are fixed, don't change based on hours. 29,000 at 260 an hour is 75, not I'm going to write 25 for some unknown reason. 75,400. Overheads for fixed overheads 94,660, giving us a total of 170,060. And that's it. That's it for the first page. Haven't quite finished yet. Yeah? So again, kilograms first, hours first, pounds later. And again, notice with both of them that when I did the units, I had a balancing figure in one place, and when I did the pounds, I had a balancing figure in a different place. So it's not always going to be that row is the balancing figure. It might be that row is the balancing figure for the units, but that row is the balancing figure for the pounds. Final thing I have to do is to do my operating budget. So again, we are given quite a lot of numbers. So let's put some of the numbers in. Again, I always start by putting in the numbers I was given. So we're given the sales revenue, 340,000 units. We're told £3.95 each. So that comes to 1,343,000. The opening inventory we're already told. Cost of production, well, these are the three figures that we've just worked out. So we have worked out the materials, which was, I've just done it. So the cost of production was 352,780. That was the materials we used in production. We've got our labour, 451,560. Remember, that's all the labour, including the overtime. Production overhead, we've just said, is 170,060. So that gives us a total of, if I can read my writing correctly, 971,400. Right, so we've got the cost of goods sold so far is the opening inventory plus the cost of production. Now what we now need to worry about is the closing inventory. We are told, all the way back up the top, we are told that the closing inventory of finished goods is 34,200. So 34,200. And I'll just write there that that was given. And we are also told they will be valued at the budgeted production cost per unit. The budgeted production cost per unit, right. Here's our, that's a 974. So I didn't think I was reading my writing correctly. I do apologise. 974 400. Sorry about that. I didn't think I could read it properly. So we have got our total production was 974 400. But we were told how many units we made. And the number of units we made was 348,000. So the cost per unit comes out at £2.80. Yeah. Now, why have I done the cost per unit? Because that's what it told me to do. It said the budgeted production cost per unit. So I worked out the production cost, 974,400. I divided it by how many units we've made, cost per unit. And then simply 34,200 times 2.80. And that will give us 95,760. Remember that closing inventory is subtracted from your production, from your cost of sales. Because remember, cost of sales is the cost of what you've sold. You haven't sold the closing inventory. It's still in inventory, so you can't include that. So we have the opening inventory, you've sold that. We have the production, we've made that. Take away the closing inventory because it's not cost of sales because you haven't sold it yet. So the cost of goods sold will be 70,740 plus 974,400 minus 95,760. That gives us 949,380. So 949,380. Gross profit, sales revenue, 1343 minus your cost of goods sold gives you 393,620. Overheads, a total of 280. And finally, that gives you an operating profit or loss of 113,620. So the idea then is, I mean, to be honest with you, the only number I've really calculated there is the closing inventory. Everything else I'd already got. I'd already got it from the previous page, or I was given it. Now, one of the things that AAT have said is that students often forget, to put minus signs in. Now, that means even if you subtract the closing inventory, even if you subtract the overheads, unless you have put them in as negatives with brackets around them, or however, you know, you have to, whatever the assessment tells you to do, unless you actually do it and show that they're negatives, it will be marked wrong, even though the number is correct. Yeah. Waleed asks, is it FIFO or weighted average? In this case, Waleed, it's FIFO. And again, don't get too worried about this, but the reason it must be FIFO is because FIFO stands for first in, first out. So in other words, what did we sell? We sold 340,000 units. The first 26,200 of them, which we were also given, the first 26,200 units is the opening inventory. So first in, first out, the first things you sell are the ones that are already there. All right, so the ones that are left at the end, the closing inventory, must have been made this month. That's why it says the closing goods inventory will be the budgeted production cost per unit for, it doesn't say this, but this is obviously what it means, for this month. Because the first things you sell under FIFO will be the ones that were already there in opening inventory. What you then sell? All the ones that you've made this month. What's left? The ones that you've made this month that you didn't sell. So we're actually using FIFO, although you're not told it's FIFO. If it was going to be weighted average, they would have to tell you that. They'd have to tell you. And without wanting to get too complicated, it would have made, the only difference would have been this calculation there. That would have been more complicated. We would have had to be told different kinds of information, but they've actually used FIFO. So we did it the same when we did the materials, because it says the materials closing inventory will be valued at what we have bought this period. Yeah. So again, what did we use first? The first things that we used were the 8,800 kilos that were already there. Those were the first ones in, so they're the first ones that come out. Then we bought some more. What's left? Things that we have purchased this month. So that's why it's saying, the budgeted purchase price per kilogram, because what will be left in store will be some of the ones that we bought this month. So we've actually used FIFO without necessarily realising that we've done it. Okay then, I hope that that's been useful to you. Good luck with all the remaining tasks that you're going to look at over the next few weeks, and I hope to see you again soon.